Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Monday night, 8 p.m. The Online Darts Live Lounge returns. Myself, Phil Bars, Jack Garwood and Dan Simpson are here to run you through the next couple of hours in what seems to be never a dull day in darts, gentlemen.
If we fit this slot into a couple of hours, we'll have worked miracles.
There is a lot to discuss, a lot to go through. But first of all, before we dive into that, how are we both?
Yeah, tip top. It's been a good week. I had a smashing weekend catching up with you. We went to Whitby, didn't we?
Yeah,
we didn't get fish and chips, but we did. It was too bloody windy for fish and chips. The weather was crackers, but yeah, I had darting wise, I had a proper good evening. Really, really cool. Spent some time with some very interesting people, including yourself. Really good, yeah. Work's hectic, but we got York this weekend as well for the seniors. So there's lots to look forward to. It's a very October is ridiculous, isn't it? In darts, completely mad but fun.
Yeah, how we doing, Gob?
Surviving, just plodding along,
just doing your thing.
Yes.
You're coming to the north this week, though, so there's lots to be positive about, mate.
Yeah, I'll take your word for that.
Yeah. Right. Let's jump into the chat room. Master Gamer, is Gary playing in Wigan tomorrow? The answer is I don't know because the PDC haven't released the list this time. But I think I will touch on it up. I think there's a good reason for that because I think it might be all over the place. Del is in. How we all doing? Joel is in. Shelty, Adam, how we doing? We'll talk about the Grand Prix. That is for sure. How we doing? Owen, Daniel was in. Warren, Wayne, Andrew, how we doing? Connor, Anos is in. Josh, it's rammed.
Busy.
Bob, James, Derek, how we doing? Yes, superb, isn't it? Bill,
they keep coming as well.
Love the total lines. Thank you very much. Owen is good. Lendl. Christ, it is manic. And again, massive thank you to all our new members as well. Max being one of them. Charlie, how we doing? Andrew. It keeps going on and on. So yeah, first of all, people are asking about the Pro Tour this weekend. I think in every stream I've done over the last few days, everyone was like, do we know who's playing? And the answer is no. And I actually think, look, one, the PDC don't have to release the entry list. They choose to. They don't have to. But two, I think, and I may be way off with this, but this block of three, I think is all over the place in terms of I think some players will play all of them. Some will play in one. Some will play in two. And it's not going to be straightforward. I think some may play in Wednesday, Thursday, miss Tuesday.
Agreed.
Some may miss Thursday. So I think the lists are going to be all over the place. So trying to publish the lists would be absolutely carnage. And then if people pull out late as well.
Well, it's probably enough work, like without just keeping their lists updated internally with the pace at which I expect things to change this week, and then covering off with who's going to step up. I think that the reserve list phone calls are going to be busy this week, trying to find somebody available. Whilst Wigan is not the worst place in the world to travel to, I've already seen players. I know Rob Grundy has been having trouble just getting there. Trains are cancelled. The weather's causing problems. So I think we're going to see some. I do think we might see some rogue competitors there by the time they've worked their way down that reserves list.
Yeah, I genuinely think it's going to be all over the place. So, especially off the back of World Series finals, Euro Tour, Pro Tour, Euro Tour here, and I just think it's probably too much. So I think that's my reasoning why I don't think they have. But you never know. How are we doing? Brian, hope you are good. Do I think Littler's going to play? I don't know. My gut says no, or certainly not in all three.
Depends how early he wins one, doesn't it?
Yeah. Like, again, the big boys, that if they win one Tuesday or Wednesday, there's no chance they play in the final one and things like that.
Correct.
So, yeah, it's... I hope Gary plays, but again, I don't think he plays in all three. If he does...
Yeah, I expect him to be there.
Yeah, I expect him to be there. I think, again, it wouldn't surprise me if he played Tuesday, Wednesday, buggered off Thursday, and then to Leicester on the Monday or the Tuesday, depending when he's playing and things like that. So it was interesting. But right, let's kind of do this in some kind of chronological order. We'll come to the World Grand Prix draw shortly. But let's go back to the Euro Tour to start with, gents. Time is running out for a lot of things for this Euro Tour weekend. One, it was the cut-off for the Grand Prix, and there was only this one and one more to get to the European Championship. So there was a lot on the line in more ways than one this weekend just gone.
That's the way we like it, though, isn't it? when there's those little underlined stories, that's when we really come alive. Like, don't get me wrong, the fact that we've played this many Euro Tours already this season, there's been a couple of stories, but with the changes in qualifying criteria and the lack of upsets, etc., from home nation qualifiers and players that typically only get to see in Euro Tours this year, the last couple of weeks have been hectic, and we've had those storylines as well.
Well, before we all crack on, we can exclusively reveal, thanks to his dad, who is an absolute gent, Luke Littler will be playing in all three Pro Tours. So there you go, everyone. Straight from the horse's mouth. Don't say we don't give you top-notch information. Cheers, Anthony.
Nice to get him out of the house for a couple of days.
I hope you are well, buddy.
FIFA.
Always good to have you in. So there you go. Littler will play, everyone, which is great because it means I don't have to spend 3 days on the stream answering where's Littler.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah, but yeah, that's yeah. So going back to the little subplots and everything, it's just a great watch.
It is, and I think that was the one thing that this weekend lacked, although it showed signs of it, is that we started it off with a lot of, and we talked about them last week, potentials. We looked at how far down did we think someone had a chance, and it ended up having had us go through that Euro Tour, that Euro Tour event, that everyone that was in the green stayed in the green, and we didn't get that last minute drama. And I'm very sure that Luke Woodhouse et al. Will be very pleased about that things stayed the way it was, but we didn't get that last bit of excitement. Callum Ridge did flash us some possibilities, and we were even in the WhatsApp group saying it can still happen. We can still get a bit of a story out of this, but the end result is that things are now very, very tight for the European Championships, and like being in and not being in is currently 500 quid. That's the difference. So I think we're going to see a lot more in and out of the green when we hit the European Championships. That qualification is going to change quite a lot.
Yeah, and look, if you're Luke Woodhouse, when you crash out on the Friday, it is a long wait and an anxious watch.
Correct. To
see if you're going to progress, especially when Andrew Gilding wins his first round game and then goes into the second round game knowing that if he wins, he's in. It's not as if he's got to win one or two. If he wins, he is there. Clemens wasn't there. Dirk went early. As we said, Callum threatened. Wessel was looking dangerous at one point as well. So if you were Luke Woodhouse watching that Rob Cross game, let's be fair, you were shitting it.
Yeah, especially let's not forget what happened at the end of that Luke Woodhouse game. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. So he's having to go through the fact that he's just been beaten whilst injured by a player who is one of the ones that can have an outside shot at doing him in for the final spot. And then he has to sit and watch 2.5 days of the tournament.
The only thing I would say is at that point, and this is purely for entertainment value, and I don't care, at that point they should lock him in a room, not let him travel home, and we have a camera on him when the games are on. Proper Big Brother style.
Yeah, so I don't know if anyone's ever, again, I think it's not.
Is that not kidnapping and entrapment?
Well, see, I watch
in the name of sports entertainment. It's fine.
I watch quite a bit of cycling, and in the big cycling time trial events, so someone, if anyone caught it during the Olympics, they'll have noticed it. But during the time trial, that's exactly what happens. Whoever is like leading the qualification, they sit in a booth in a chair with a camera on them, and throughout it, like interviewers and presenters and journalists will keep saying, "Well, how do you feel now? Shitting your pants, yeah?" Right? And they'll get reports.
I'm all up for this.
And they genuinely get reports of like where other people are at, and they're watching everyone else. Oh, he's 2 seconds under your time at the checkpoint, and they do make them sit. And then as soon as someone beats them, they're ousted from that seat, and whoever's in the lead has to sit down. And it keeps going on. It's a great feature of it. I'm all for it.
I'm down for this.
Bring that to darts qualification.
Yeah, I'm fully behind this. However, I feel sorry for the person that, if for argument's sake, say it was either someone like Michael Smith, or someone or Kerwin Price. By the way, you've got to sit in that chair for the next hour.
Yeah. While we hold this microphone in your face and ask you all about your feelings.
Yeah, good luck with that one. But the Euro Tour itself, look, a couple of talking points. One, before we dive into it, I want to talk about Nathan Aspinall, because we don't know if Gary's in. Maxie, we generally don't know. I hope so, but we don't know.
I'll get a small sign for that soon. I'll put it up.
Look, Nathan Aspinall, he's been through a lot, but there are good signs. And interestingly, he's gone back to his phase 1 darts as well. That I hadn't clocked it last weekend because I didn't see it. But this week I was like, oh, gone back to the old ones. And that's an interesting switch backwards.
It possibly means how do I say this? The change may have been to accommodate a change in his grip that was forced upon him via injury.
Yeah, agreed.
Because that change did come around the first time that he started to break down. Then he had that small gap and dip, and then he's gone away and he's had more work on it recently as well. He may now be in a position where he is capable of gripping the dart the same way that he did when those first darts were released. And in that case, he can throw them again.
Yeah.
I think he looked great.
The action looked
the game against
amazing.
Chisnell. I know I'm jumping because we haven't done the first round yet, but that game against Chisnell in the second round, I just thought he looked like really vintage. Was good, but it looked properly vintage. That's what he looks like when he wins things, and if he can capture that and keep it, it's dangerous, because it's a dangerous time of year for a player like Nathan Aspinall to grab some form and feel comfortable. But I thought he looked superb against Chizzy.
Yeah, I completely agree. And look, having this version of Nathan Aspinall back is only a good thing. Cameron Menzies as well is keeps threatening to do things, and we see sparkling performances from him. Expecting big things from him in the upcoming TV tournaments.
Well, he's 750 quid off the European Championship, so he's one of those players that we were talking about a minute ago that are, during that next Euro tour, they are going to get in the mix, because the difference is so small that even just as each one of them plays a game, it's going to go in and out constantly. It's very exciting, and he does. Cam Menzies does seem to very often find himself in those very, very close qualification battles. It seems to happen a lot throughout the year. Hopefully he can just gather enough steam to keep himself within the green, so to speak.
Yeah. Good evening, Anthony. I hope you are good in Texas. How are we doing, Maddo? Hope you are good. We will touch on the draw in a minute. Anton Ersland showed glimpses of the player that we know is there, and we'll touch on Sweden more later on in the show, but it was good to see him back. Michael Smith was beating himself up a lot, especially against Stephen Bunting. There are question marks around players going into this major season as well. From the body language that we've seen, the results, it's an interesting time to read players from what we're seeing.
I think we get this every year, though, don't we? It's always the story of who's hitting form at the right time. Not everybody peaks at the right time. Not everybody drops off at the wrong time. Like that's what makes the dart season so intriguing. It would possibly be a bit easier for players to get this right if there was an established break that we get in other sports. But because that doesn't happen, and because there are tournaments all year round that are valuable and that can unlock doors for you, we get these dips, ups and downs from every player on the tour. And what we ideally want is as many of the top players at the top of their game right now, because that makes for an intriguing major season. If not, then there's a very, very good chance that nobody other than the people called Luke are going to win a trophy for the rest of the year, because those two are just ridiculous.
Your boy, Gob, James Wade, some good signs for him. In the main was very good, but you could tell that perhaps he hasn't played those long days for a while, because he was brilliant in the afternoon, but there was a substantial dip between last 16 and quarterfinals, perhaps where he hasn't done that for a while.
Yeah, possibly. Either that or he just had issues with his Velcro all over again. You never know.
Have you ever heard Velcro make that noise?
I'll be honest, I thought it was Scott Giblin the way he walked past the camera. It took me a while to realise what had happened. Look, the way he's formed at the start of the year was quite a concern. The fact he's even making final days of Euro Tours is quite a big boost, because he was another who was falling out of the top 16 for the first time.
We did see some. We saw some rather. What word will I use? I'll go for insightful. There's a lot I could use. Interview. He had some unusual commentary to make on his own game and on darts itself, didn't he? And I think often, and I think we probably discussed it at the time, that when players tend to come out and do that, it can often work against them. And it doesn't seem like it has for James this time around. He was quite vocal about a number of things, but it's almost a little bit like it feels like he sort of got it off his chest. And since then has got on with the business of winning some darts matches. And I think he's looked far, far better for it since he had that little sharing of his feelings with the world. I think he looks strong. And I think where he's at the minute, it's not prime wading. It's not his best, but he's not getting beat by B and C games, which has been the story the last couple of years. You've got to play well to beat him at the minute. In most games, 8 out of 10 times you've got to turn up and beat him. He won't just let you have a walkover. Yeah.
Also, just tell me WhatsApp on me laptop off. Forgot it was on. Raymond van Barneveld getting to a quarterfinal as well. Promising signs for Barney that he ran into the eventual winner. We'll touch on that in a minute. But I want a special word for Callum Ridds, because this time last week we were concerned for him, his general health. But what a difference a week can make. Getting to the semi-final, and this week he just looked cool, calm, composed, and it was just a joy to see after what we saw the week before.
I think
it started at the Pro Tours last week as well, didn't it? Like, he put together a couple of nice little runs.
Yeah.
He took a couple of swipes at people that had wronged him after that on social media, and he's continued that good form into the weekend. Like, we desperately gutted to have missed out, left himself an awful lot to do to make that leap into the Grand Prix, but he is really nicely placed for the rest now. So if he stays in the form that he's been in of the last week, then we could be seeing Callum on the TV a lot more for the rest of the year.
Yeah, he did. He looked comfortable, which he hasn't done lately. Form was there. I thought that he threw at a really nice pace. It was really positive. It was lovely to see. Highlight of the weekend.
Yeah, it was good. And then Ryan Searle, I disagree with what he said. He said he bottled it. Now, I guess it feels like that because he was in such a strong position in the final, but the darts he threw at a double weren't bad darts. They were hugging wires, and there was probably one out of the 7 was a shit dart. but the rest were close enough that, yes, it hurts to miss 7-match darts across 2 legs, but I wouldn't call it a bottle job.
No.
It'd just be interesting to see what he says about it now that he's had a couple of days to reflect on it, or has possibly even watched it back, because the feedback that you'll get internally from yourself when you're throwing in that moment, he'll know a lot more whether he thinks he missed that because he threw them badly, didn't handle the pressure very well, or if they were well thrown darts and they just didn't have a result. And in that moment, that's probably what he's relating to. I don't think Ryan's the type to go, I'll just get there before everybody else and say I bottled it. If that wasn't the case, if they were well thrown darts and they just didn't go in, which happens, by the way, the amount of times that I see the opposite storyline being peddled is ridiculous. You can throw good darts and then not go where you're supposed, not hit the target you're going for. Yeah, like I said, it'll be interesting to see his opinion on that now that he's had a day or so to digest it and watch it back and see if he still thinks the same.
Yeah, no, I agree. But kudos to Martin Schindler, because it's his second Euro Tour title. And look, he played some great stuff across that final day. If you look at his averages, 95.5, 95, 102.
102 against Josh Rock was certainly after what Josh Rock had just done to Luke Humphreys. To then just tip up and bash him up with 102 average it's a real positive, because we say a lot, like there's a lot of players, whilst we wouldn't maybe put our 50 pence bet on them winning a Euro Tour or a Pro Tour event, we know there's a lot of players with the game, and if they could find that game for 6-7 matches in a row, then they're able. They've got the ability. And what we're seeing now, though, not from Martin Schindler, is that he's got the ability and he's been able to do it. But he can do it, and then he can do it again, and he can back it up. He can do it multiple times. And when we see that from players, there's not a lot of players that pick up multiple Euro Tour titles in the same year and don't end up establishing themselves at the top of the spot as a solid top 16 regular, top 10 even player. There's not many players that because it shows you have that ability, but you can find it again and again. He's not just done it in his own country. I think it's very, very positive signs right across the board for Martin Schindler. Yes, of course, it's positive he's won, but I think like overall, hugely positive for his career.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's good to see that as well. That, and look, I know Clemens obviously gets a lot of the plaudits for getting to the world semi-final, but for me, I think Martin Schindler is a more complete player and Germany's best hope at the moment of that first major.
I agree.
Yeah, I still think it's a little way off though.
Yeah, yes, and for one of the big ones, I agree. But one of the ones like a Euro Tour where you've got to win multiple times on a day, and if you end up in the nice half of the draw, because the way the European Championships, the Players' Championship seeding goes, I could see him winning one of them.
Or something
I agree.
like the UK
big
Open.
Ones, he's a little way off yet when the seedings are correct in brackets and it's a longer format. I agree, but I think one of those he could win.
I think something like a UK Open could be perfect for him, where he can avoid potentially, the big boys can bash each other up, and he can slowly go about his business. And then, because we know in any one game he can get the job done against the best in the world, and he's done it, 4 titles. So something like that.
The first Euro Tour in Switzerland, and I have to say, what a blooming good success it was. The crowds were fabulous. They got involved, and I enjoyed every minute of it.
It's almost as if going to new markets creates a buzz and is entertaining.
Yeah, but it's interesting that
instead of the 4 billionth German town,
we've had a long talk about whether or not the Palace has been outgrown by darts. And you had about 1,000 more people in there, maybe more than you would get at the Palace. And I thought it looked about perfect, that. I think that size and capacity for a World Championship session would be tremendous. It looked really good. Yeah, and it's not just, we've seen it busy. Like, Premier League nights are busy. Doesn't mean it's good or a nice atmosphere to be in. It looked a lot of fun, didn't it? Like, it looked like if you were there, you would be having a good night. It looked really, really good.
Yeah, I completely agree. And yeah, look, we know Bars was close to the German border, but it was still very, very good. How we doing, Malachi? How we good? Mark is in. Him and Ricky working late. Good to have you in. It saw us Google Maps. Cheers, Joel.
Well done.
But no, it was superb to see that flourish and that work so well. Right, everyone's been talking about it. Let's go. Let's go to it off the back of it. The draw for the World Grand Prix took place this afternoon, and oh my God, did it deliver or what? There is some absolute humdingers of ties to look forward to in the opening round on a short format.
I mean, it's brutal for some people. It's brutal. But there's others. I do think there's other little sections of that bracket where there will be players thinking, "Oh, I fancy that. Like, I fancy my way through that and navigating those little brackets." It'll get a bit complicated as you get deeper, but there are some naughty stuff in there.
I tell you, it is particularly difficult for seeds 1 to 7. It's almost like the advantage has just been completely thrown out the window.
Yeah, 100%. Let's put the draw up, and there we have it. And this is in draw bracket order as well. So, Luke Humphreys, section 1, come down section 2. The next one, 3 and 4.
It's brutal, isn't it?
But again, look at the seeds. Number 1 seed, Luke Humphreys, takes on Stephen Bunton. Johnny Clayton, the number 8 seed, arguably, and this is a stretch, by the way, given the form Richie Edhouse has been in this year, arguably has the nicest tie of any of the 8 seeds in Richie Edhouse. Rob Cross takes on Luke Littler. Nathan Aspinall against Ryan Searle, made a Euro Tour final at the weekend. Michael Smith takes on his former mentor, Gary Anderson. Gerwyn Price gets Danny Noppert, perhaps in the same conversation as Richard House, but is ranked 15 places higher at least. Van Gerwen takes on Gurney. We've seen a slightly decent little resurgence of Gurney of late, by the way, and he'll be well up for that scrap. And Chisnell takes on Cameron Menzies, arguably the most informed player in the world.
It's mega, isn't it? And even when you look through, I think it's a lovely draw for the fan. As like I say, there'll be players in there thinking it's an absolute nightmare. But if you want to fantasy book yourself a second round, I think that's even better. I think some of the list of potential second round matches there as well is as good as there is some absolutely and not even just, some of it's just box office. It's not even like it's not even the levels of darts. It's just the entertainment value and seeing these players bump into each other. I think there's a lot to like about the draw. A lot to like about it.
Yeah, look, Bobby Cross must be like, what have I done here? Because his record in this tournament is awful anyway. And then he draws Littler.
And it's awful for a player that you expect the complete opposite of, by the way.
Yeah.
Rob Cross's clutch double hitting is superb. And he's got nominated favourites on 18s and 16s. And he's genuinely one of the best top sitters in the world, according to the stats. He just avoids it like the plague. It doesn't make sense for Rob Cross to not be successful in this format.
Yeah. I think he just overthinks it. I think it just fries his brain a little bit. Look, he's not the only one, by the way. This tournament does silly things to people.
James Wade's record is terrible.
It does magic things to others, though, doesn't it? That's the thing. And And there's also players that we haven't seen play this format before, which makes it exciting as well. I think it's a smashing draw, and I'm really looking forward to it. It's a fun tournament anyway. Any time that we get to see anything different is good, because and we probably watch, more darts than 99% of darts fans, but the amount of darts we watch, a lot of it is very much the same, very similar formats. There isn't a lot that makes it different. So that double in, double out format is such a welcome change at this time in the year. Very, very exciting.
Yeah. So out of the seeds, who are you feeling is in most danger?
Rob Cross.
Next.
Although, I'd be happy to also, Rob Cross is in the most danger. Of course he is. But Chisnell's not going to have a happy time of it. Neither is Michael Smith. Neither is Nathan Aspinall. Luke Humphries will probably get away with it because he's so good. And we are not seeing, like we went into a lot of detail on last week, that we're not seeing the Stephen Bunting that we expected to see at this time in this year. So I think Humphries will be okay, but there's at least 3 or 4 that are going to be right up against it, I think.
Yeah, look, I agree. But all I will say is, look, we know that Luke is in incredible form right now. But if you haven't played this tournament before, it may not be as straightforward as it usually is for him. You have to think a little bit differently.
I tell you what will be interesting to see what double Luke starts on.
Oh, he's already said tops because he can't hit a 9 off of the others.
It's not strictly true. There is one other you can, but
well, yeah, but
doubles for 17.
Yeah, but he's already thinking about the 9. He said that when we interviewed him in Holland.
More of that, please.
Well, then my next question would be: if that first dart at tops is unsuccessful and a 9 goes out the window, how quickly does he use double 10?
Oh, he'll go. I think he'll go to 10s and 15s. I think that will be the MO.
Yeah. But is that after one dart? Does it depend on the lie of it? Do you persist with more than one? But he is so comfortable in that bottom right-hand corner. Him and Michael Smith. Michael Smith starts double 15, doesn't he?
Yeah, or the other one as well. Do we see Luke with the flatty on tops to start with? Because if he goes under, he's then got the lie.
No, I don't think so. Because don't get me wrong, it's possible. But it's just going to take you out your rhythm a bit.
I think it's genuinely interesting because he's got such a different approach sometimes to a lot of the rest of the top end of the Pro Tour in terms of how he plays the board, that I just find it fascinating to see how. And I think my gut is that we might see it change as the tournament goes on, assuming that he goes on in the tournament. It doesn't get done by Rob Cross in the first round. But assuming he goes on in the tournament, I think we might see his approach change depending on what's going on and how he feels and how the last dart went. And because I think he's a incredibly insightful. I think he uses his instinct a great deal, and I think he goes the way that feels right at the time sometimes, and he knows all the different ways of going. So I think we might see him mix it up a bit.
I agree. Look, we got a repeat of the match play opening round as well. Michael Smith and Gary Anderson lock horns again, and I think this is an intriguing tie because look, Michael Smith has been erratic recently. Gary Anderson, we don't know, so I think there's a lot of intrigue around this game.
Great game. Again, all you can really do with these draws is you can sort of find reasons to be excited about them. And again, this has got a lot more in the tick on the side of interesting and exciting than many of the other games have. I think it's a really, really exciting one. And I don't know who the hell's going to win it.
Look, eyes will be on Aspinall and MVG as well, both defending winners and runners-up money from 2 years ago, and both have got tricky ties in round one.
Yeah, more. I think Aspinall, will feel an awful lot better about his tie after the darts he was able to produce at the weekend. I think had he not been able to find the level and comfort that he found at the weekend, then I think he might take one look at that and think, shit, like, right, Ryan Searle coming off the back of a Euro Tour final could be a really tough task, and probably would have been for Nathan at any point in the last 8 to 9 months. But I think he'll take a great deal of positives from what we saw, and he looks like he's banging in shape. So I think that's a really, really tight one. I think we've seen, whilst we have seen a bit of a Gurney resurgence, we've seen much more of a Michael van Gerwen resurgence, and I just think the gap between where those two players are meaning out at the minute is too much, and I think Michael will be fairly comfortably coming through that.
I'm more concerned for Nathan of the two seeds that we're talking about there.
Yeah,
and I think that would change if there wasn't 3 Pro Tours this week. But the fact Ryan has the ability to go and play darts elsewhere before going into that environment, I think will just give him that chance to settle down again. If he was walking straight into the Grand Prix off the disappointment of missing darts to win a Euro Tour, then I think his mentality changes a little bit. But the fact he's got a couple of days now to just go and play the Pro Tours, not carefree, but with the ability to just go through the motions and get some results under his belt, I think that will really stand him in good stead for when he comes around to play Nathan. Look, Gurney, I think, is a great battler. He keeps showing glimpses, but I still want that bit more from Daryl now. We need to see that extra gear, that extra level from Daryl that pushes him back towards top 16, top 10, top 8 in the world player, Daryl, because I still think that's in there somewhere. And the more he's allowed to go under the radar, the more that we see players like Joe Cullen and Johnny Clayton struggle a little bit, let's be honest. The more that door is slightly ajar for Daryl Gurney, but there are plenty of people that want that spot, and he's got to get going soon or he's going to leave himself for too much to do.
The door is ajar, like you say, because he's carrying very little. I haven't got the numbers in front of me, so I'm working from memory, but he's carrying very little in terms of his ranking money. And there's an awful lot of other players that are carrying a shit ton of ranking money. And that does just leave the door ajar for a bit of a shuffle in those rankings, because there are players bang out of form who are carrying an awful lot of money. And there are players that are just on that way back into some form, the likes of a Gurney, or that could find some form, who might just find themselves, in a position in the rankings that maybe a year ago they could only have dreamt of. I think we could see some real shuffles over the next two months.
I'm a little bit concerned for MVG because of the illness that he's had recently. Look, he looked great on the Pro Tour and the Euro Tour, and then being forced to pull out of the 2 Pro Tours, the Euro Tour, and I don't think he's playing in these either. So I'm a little bit concerned he may be a little bit underdone due to illness.
Do we know the nature of the illness? Is it public or not? Or do we just
No, just illness.
In that, like, it's difficult then to. It's difficult to have a view on, innit? It's although, like, I will take your point. If I've been off work ill for a few weeks and I've gone back because I've had to more than I was ready to, then the idea of me being at peak productivity is probably unlikely. So, but we've seen an awful lot of Michael van Gerwen lately doing things that people didn't expect. So I think he's a very difficult man to write off at the minute, because every time somebody does try and write him off, he seems to produce something rather ridiculous.
Yeah, Owen, so round 1 is a very, very short format. It is first to 2 sets. So effectively, it could be 6-0.
You could win 6-0. Serve the bagel.
Can we talk about the rest of the draw now? Because we focused an awful lot on the seeds, and there are some stinker draws elsewhere too.
Yeah, of course we can.
I.e., Peter Wright, James Wade.
See, that is a stinker of a match for both of those players and supporters of them. I saw that and went, yes, like I'll enjoy that. I will enjoy that.
But even then, you look through the rest of them. Barney against Petresco.
I'll put it back up for everyone.
Ricardo made a pretty, not miraculous, but a solid recovery from that injury that made him withdraw.
Well, he beat Barney at the weekend, didn't he?
Yeah. Gian against Ross Smith. Gian's an absolute star, Ross Smith. Interesting to see what double Ross opts for. In that one, Dolan against Schindler. Look, I think you give Schindler the edge in that one, just given last weekend. But if there's one thing you've learned in this, it's absolutely do not write off Martin at Brendan Dolan at all. Josh Rock, Ryan Joyce. This is one where you're probably looking at going, right, the favourite is quite comfortably the favourite. I think Ryan Joyce is a 16s man. If he sticks to his plan and hits 16s like we know he can, Josh is in for a tough game. If Ryan is slightly off it in that southwest corridor, he's in a world of trouble.
I agree. I agree with you on that one. As much as I am the poster boy for supporting Northeast Darts, I think Ryan might just find himself a little bit up against it, and I think it's lovely. It's great to see him there. I'm really pleased he's qualified, but I think maybe with another draw. But I think Josh Rock will just have far too much.
Joel said it in the chat room. Ryan hasn't played enough recently for me. Pulled out of too many events.
Yeah.
So, yeah, tough one.
Other side of the draw, Mike Tadeka, Damon Hatter, absolute 180 fest. If they can both get in. They're on a par for me. Peter Wright, James I've already mentioned. Chris Dobie against Joe Cullen.
Horrible.
Neither
match.
player will have liked to see that one come up.
Awful match that for both players, I think.
And then Luke Woodhouse, Dimitri Vandenberg, Woodhouse sneaking in, but his reward is a dance with Dimmy, which I'm not sure anybody wants.
If Daryl Gurney manages to oust Michael Van Gerwen in the first round, then I think that fourth quarter is wide open. Because
Cameron Menzies televised semi-final.
Any one of those players could beat any one of those other players on a stage in a match at the weekend, 100%. And I think if MVG goes to Gurney first round, that's chaos. That fourth quarter.
Well, let's do this then. Chat room, get involved as well. Who comes through the four quarters? What will the semi-final lineup be? So as you're looking at the graphic, Luke Humphreys and the first four games are section 1. Below that, section 2. Michael Smith starts section 3. And MVG starts section 4. So who are we saying comes through section 1?
Oh, I don't like to be boring.
But
me, Dan.
But boring I shall be. And Luke Humphreys for me. He's too good. I'm afraid he's too good.
Correct. This is the tournament that started it all, really, isn't it?
it is. I'm going Luke Humphreys from section 1 as well. Sorry, everyone. Section 2.
This is harder, but it's the second hardest one to pick. The other two are much harder. Luke Littler. Go on. He'll do it.
Gob?
One for the baseball fans here. I'm going to chuck out a cheeky little curveball. I'm going Josh Rock.
I toyed with Josh Rock. If I hadn't have stuck to Littler and picked one of the others, I'd have probably gone Josh Rock.
I'm going to throw another curveball. Nathan Aspinall. Section 3.
Oh. Damon Heta. I don't think anyone else has got the consistent form that he has been able to find more regularly of late than the rest of them. And whilst there's some absolute superstars in there, I think Heta gets through that.
God, what are you saying?
Mikael Smythe.
Gary Anderson. 4th section.
Dobby. I mean, but I'm not even taking the piss with that. I do think that the Gurney game is a tough one for MVG. Cullen, whilst it's a tough game, it's probably the wrong time for Cullen to meet Dobby. I think the other two games are a bit of a lottery, but I think Dobby does it.
What are you saying, Gob?
What you saying?
What you saying?
I think we know what Phil's going to say.
Cameron.
Interesting. Oh. I'm torn here. Part of me wants to say, obviously, Michael.
It's head and heart, isn't it? That's for you.
But I agree with Dan. I think Dobie is playing really well at the moment. No, I'm going Michael.
You took that graphic off the screen just as I decided to pour myself a drink.
So,
the graphics on. I'll get away with pouring a beer.
So, from your semi-finalists and chat room, who will beat who to become the 2024 World Grand Prix champion? Johnny, we'll come on to Leicester being the home in a minute because Matt Porter did say something interesting at the start of the draw.
Wow.
The live draw?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will have to... Oh, God, I hate being dull.
The thing is, they do the draw on a Monday as well. They could literally hire us like the seniors did.
We are available for hire.
Yeah.
Always.
For all sorts of different things. Don't think that we've...
No, I'm sure I'll get a pleasant response.
The second word will be off.
It's going to have... it's Luke Humphreys. It's the other finalist that's the struggle. Because who comes through my semi-final? Oh, just realised I've got a semi-final of Heta and Dobie. And it'll be Dobie. So Luke Humphreys beats Dobie in the final.
Oh, Jamie, don't worry. Dan is available for hire for birthday parties.
Oh, yes. Adults only. I don't do kids' birthday parties anymore. But adult birthday parties, absolutely.
I am 4 inches smaller than Tiny Rich Dashdown. Yes, now you can stop going on about in the chat, whoever you are.
It's an odd one, that, because I would say of all the people I've met in my life, you were one of the people who surprised me most when I first met you in person, being far bigger than I thought you would be.
6'1".
Genuinely surprised me.
Measurements,
I thought, what a large man. Didn't think he'd be that big.
Humphreys beats Michael Smith in the final.
It's very difficult not to pick Luke Humphreys to win stuff,
So we've all got Luke Humphreys in the final.
Very difficult not to pick him.
He will play. Now, this is heart versus head because I've got El Clasico as my semi-final. Michael beats Gary in the semi-final. Michael plays Luke in the final. Michael gets revenge for the match play. That's what my heart says.
Yeah.
My head says Luke Humphreys wins.
I was going to say, your head doesn't, surely.
No, that's what I'm saying. Head versus heart. That's what,
it does.
That's what my heart says. My head says Luke Humphreys defends the title.
It's incredibly difficult. And it's like you are on a quest often. Certainly, if you've got to sit and talk about darts a lot, to not be boring and say something interesting and different and challenging people's opinions. But I just think it's incredibly difficult to not say, well, the law of averages said Luke Humphreys probably wins this, doesn't he? Because he's the best player in the world. He keeps winning stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, you sort of beat us to it. I've been waiting for that news to break since 8 o'clock, but it is in the chat room, and that probably moves us on quite nicely.
Go on then, Gob. You can do it.
Breaking news from the World Seniors Dart Store. Phil Taylor has been forced to withdraw from the weekend. He is still in recovery from his hip operation, isn't fit enough to go. His replacement has been announced as Tony O'Shea. The Silverback missed out on playing at the World Championships after suffering a finger injury that had to be drained on site. Couldn't throw a dart. He amusingly showed the crowd in what I can only describe to you as a carry-on sketch style speech to the crowd to illustrate what he'd done, with a great big bandage on top of the injured finger to show that he couldn't play. But yeah, the Silverback will go in York this weekend instead of Phil Taylor.
And look, although it's a blow, look, Phil will be part of the broadcast team, as it says on the World Seniors social media. But if I'm being honest, I don't think that makes a blind bit of difference to John Henderson, because in my opinion, he batters both of them.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah. I mean, we saw John this week, and I was lucky enough to see him play darts this week, and I think he's playing some lovely darts at the moment. I don't think that is going to make a huge amount of difference to John.
Yeah.
I actually think it makes John's job easier.
Yeah.
I especially against someone like Phil. I don't think John particularly enjoys being the favourite centre of attention. The first tournament he ever played in was in Yeovil last year, and it did not go very well for him at all, but he was almost parachuted in as the absolute favourite to win it, shouldn't drop a leg, blah, blah, blah. And it just didn't go to plan for him for that reason. And
he had a rough time in York as well.
Against Phil Taylor as well. Don't get me wrong, he will still be favourite, but one, he's learnt that slowly, and two, if you've been playing Phil Taylor, there's still that, oh my God, this is Phil, that can unravel if you're struggling with the nerves a bit. I don't necessarily think that happens over the distance of the first round against Tony.
He had a rough time in York as well last year. Like I was right on the hockey last year. I was on the front row, and the amount of darts that he threw into the treble one, I've never seen that amount of darts go into a treble one in one match before. He had a real struggle, but I think this year, especially with a change of opponent, without that, sometimes it's not the pressure. It's just it's feeling a little bit like, I think if you're playing Phil Taylor at an event like that, you are the main event, no matter what time of day it is or when it's happening. Like, that's the main thing that lots of people, like, that's what everyone's talking about. That's what everyone's going to come back from the bar to watch that. That's the main event. And I think removing that away, as well as having, been to the venue already before, played there, I think John is going to be an awful lot more comfortable this year than we saw him. Certainly last year in York, anyway.
Well, again, he's said this last year. He didn't want to be there because he wasn't in the right frame of mind. He just played in the Pro Tour as well as a call up in his head. That's where he should be. I don't think he wanted to be there last year either. Where I think now he's kind of accepted that he can play there and so on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you're right with that.
But someone else,
I think he wants to get back on tour.
Yeah, I agree, but I think he's more comfortable in himself with that now than.
I think he just knows that not being on tour isn't the end of the world. I think
Correct.
when he lost his tour card, it was as if darts and a career in darts could come crashing down around him, and what the hell do I do now? I think now he's so comfortable with what darts looks like without a tour card. Boring, repeating the same things. There has never been a better time to not have a tour card, and he is one of the many beneficiaries of that being the case at the minute. So I just think, well, if he's happy at the minute, he's happy with what he's doing. I assume that that it is financially sustainable for him to carry on doing what he's doing. So if he gets his tour card, brilliant, back on tour. If he doesn't, well, he's already happy, so he just continues to be happy doing what he's doing, doesn't it? So I just think it's a great position to be in.
Yeah, 100%. Someone asked why Phil's withdrawn. He's not recovered from hip surgery. He had literally had his hip replaced. And whilst getting ready for this tournament, he's overdone it slightly and torn some of the scar tissue around the new hip. So he's not ready. Josh, he will be doing some comms. He will be part of the team. I think
he's had a try. I think they've, from what my understanding is, he and these medical people have tried their very best. He's done the cortisone, he's done the injection. I think he's tried everything he can to get himself to the hockey. But it's now starting to look like Sunderland will be the next time we get to see him.
Yeah. So whilst we're there, let's look at the seniors. There's no point going off of it. Leonard Gates goes there to try and defend the title he won last year. Goes off as bookies' favourite as well. I'm not surprised at that. He's played well in the WDF events in North America and the CDC events, booking a place back at Alexandra Palace. So a man that's done that, it's hard to overlook him.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to be there or thereabouts. I think there's a lot of talent in there. Obviously, some of them closer to their form than others. But it's difficult to argue that he wouldn't be the bookies' favourite. I mean, it's got to be between him and Henderson on it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's hard to look past them. So let's run you through the first round sides. First up is Richie Howson against Trina Gulliver. Neil Duff against Chris Mason, both friends of the show. Good luck calling that one. Kevin Painter against David Cameron. Now it will be John Henderson against Tony O'Shea. Leonard Gates against James Richardson. Paul Hogan against Lisa Ashton. Martin Adams against Matt Clark. And Robert Thornton against John Part. So let's go. Richie Howson, we know he's in the chat room. Sorry, Richie. Against Trina Gulliver. Look, although we've seen Trina play some good stuff at the Super Series recently, and And at the women's series, I just think that Richie will be too strong for her.
Yeah, I agree. The betting odds are a joke on this one, but I agree. I definitely agree. I think Richie gets this one done.
Disagreeing, Gob, or are you on board?
I agree. Hassan's just made a stone of stuff these days.
Yeah.
Are we working with anyone? Can I use any odds at all?
Yeah.
1 to 50 is a piss.
I was looking yesterday. The only ones
1 to 50 is a piss take, Paddy.
It's insulting as well because the gap isn't that deep.
It's ridiculous.
Yes, I think Richie will win, but that's just disrespectful to how well Trina can play.
It's ridiculous. I don't know, but because I saw yesterday, I saw odds of 1 to 25, and then live now I can see 1 to 50, which is absurd because I think Richie's 11 to 2 for the title, which I think is a brilliant odds. I just think that the odds don't marry up between the opening round and the outrights. The odds don't seem to fit together at all.
I think this is a tough game to call. Neil against Mace.
I disagree. Just because I think we've seen, both brilliant players, lovely chaps, but I just think we've seen a lot more.
Of an opinion, by the way. Let's just put that bit out.
Yeah, neither of them short of an opinion at all. Right? But I think we've seen more competitive darts from Neil Duff, and therefore it's much easier to pick Neil to win it, simply because, I think Chris's form is a bit of a mystery. I don't know how. Sorry,
he's been putting the hours in locally, playing really well. Played a local comp the other week.
Yeah,
but like you said, there's no substitute for match practice in that sort of environment. And Neil just did 3 weeks solid at the Super Series, which makes it more difficult to judge his form, especially as he ran off to play the Welsh on the Sunday for one of them, the British on the Sunday for another one. He's then gone to Slovakia, etc. Chris might have a chance to catch him tired.
Well, let's be honest, Chris can catch him regardless because he's that good a player, and he just needs to find it, and it's there. He's too good to not be able to do that. It's just because you're a bit closer to it than I am, and I sort of see what is accessible for me up here in the Northeast. So I'm much more aware of Neil getting out and playing competitively and the levels that he's reaching in that. To me, the sort of on a bit on the outside, Chris's form is a bit of a mystery, but I'm very well aware he has the game to just turn it on. It's probably the opening round game I am most looking forward to because of that.
Yeah, I think if Neil goes to the place that he can, I think Neil wins it, but I think that Mace will be competitive. I like what I've seen from him. And look, he knows how to win games. That nous doesn't disappear. I know it was 18 months ago now, but he rocked up at the Super Series just a commentator. First leg he played was a 10-dart leg. Then he takes out 1-3-2 in the same game. So
he knows how to play the game, does Mace? In more ways than one, doesn't he?
This is what I mean, that it doesn't matter what he's been doing. There's a switch that goes upstairs that he goes back into player mode, which is why I think he'll be competitive.
The best thing about it is the new Target tours have got a lot more red on them, so when he inevitably cuts his hand, it will hide the blood really well. Because it's got habit doing that.
Lynn is in the chat room as always. How we doing, Laura, as well, and the O'Shea clan. What's 8 months between friends, John? I think Neil edges it, but I think this could be game of the first round. I really do.
It is. It's definitely the pick for both entertainment value and potentially the quality that we can see from both. I think every player in here has got a ceiling, and some of them are quite different, and some of them are lower than and higher than others. I think both the players in this match have a particularly high ceiling in this field. It's without a doubt the pick of the opening round.
Yeah, then we've got Kevin Painter against David Cameron. Look, David Cameron is playing exceptionally well. Pinned the 9 at the last CDC event. If you'd have asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said this had been comfortable for David Cameron due to the issues that Kevin was having on the board. We all know the well-documented struggles, but he's been to see a hypnotherapist. I don't know more than once, but by all accounts, the hypnotherapist has sorted him out and he's in a good place again. So this one all of a sudden becomes competitive, I think.
Yeah, he's picked up a vault since then. Kevin in front of the camera is a different animal. We don't have to tell you that. Let's not go back too far from that ridiculous comeback he pulled off at the Tavern last year. But I'm still shading David Cameron. I cannot be more up on David Cameron's game right now than I am at the minute.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think Kevin's he's a hell of a player and a real spectacle, and he's dangerous in these events because he still has, like we saw at the Tavern, like he's got that winning instinct and that ability to sort of bite down and really, really make a match out of it. But we've seen David Cameron compete over the last 2 years, 3 years, just in a very different way to how sort of Kevin's currently competing in the game. And I just think that gets it done for David. I just think he's too used to posting big numbers and getting through games. I think it's a Cameron win, but it won't be easy.
Yeah, I think Cameron comes through it, but I think it will be difficult. I think Cameron has wobbles on TV, especially. But I think he does come through this. John Henderson against Tony O'Shea. My opinion on this game hasn't changed, whether it's Tony or whether it's Phil. I think this is comfortable for the Highlander.
Yeah.
I agree.
Leonard Gates against James Richardson. Now, this is an intriguing one because Leonard, let's just say the last seniors tournament got his preparation very wrong. I think that would be fair to say. So perhaps he's got a bit of a point to prove this time round.
I'm not. I think this will be a tough game for Leonard Gates. I make him the favourite and I think he'll win, but I don't think it's going to be easy. I think James Richardson's going to make him work for it.
What are you saying, Job?
Yeah, I agree. I think this is one where James will want it. As much of a cliche and a stupid thing to say it is, I think James will want it too much. And I think that just frees Leonard up to do what Leonard's done so often on a senior stage.
I also think that there'll be added pressure on James because knowing the Richardson clan like we do, I think he will be well supported in York as well. I think the Richardson fan club will travel, which brings added pressure as well.
Well, the Pro Tours are in York this week. It's not a stretch to are in Wigan this week, Thursday. James plays Friday. Little family affair.
Yeah. Look, I think Leonard does take it, but I think it will be close. This next one intrigues me. I haven't looked at the odds, but I think the bookies will make Paul Hogan favourite against Lisa Ashton.
Favourite? I've got him fucking 1-4.
Are you shitting me?
No, Current price 1-4 for Paul Hogan. Lisa is 11-4.
That's
Yeah,
ridiculous.
she was 5-2 when I looked.
That's live with Paddy, like on mid screen now.
They were the exact same odds as Hendo and Taylor.
Yes, that's the same because they haven't updated it yet, so they've still got Hendo and Taylor the same 11-4 and 1-4.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I think it's bonkers.
And part of the reason I say that is that
Lisa's done him up there before.
I was about to say Lisa's done him up there before, and I know it shouldn't matter, but it does. I think Paul is one of those old school players that struggles to play against a woman. He said it himself. He didn't want to play Lisa before he played her last time.
When I've interviewed him, he told me that firsthand.
Yeah. So I think those odds are ridiculous.
The first event he ever qualified for, he played Lisa Ash and he lost. That was in Hull last year.
If you could keep it quiet though, until I can get a few more. If you could all just leave it alone until I can get a few more quid on it, that'd be ace though. Because if everyone starts hammering it in tonight, I'll be a bit frustrated. Like if we can retain some value in it, that'd be lovely.
Especially as Lisa is playing a lot better than she was start of this year, back end of last year when she had that elbow issue.
Oh, I tell you what, you can have 11-10 for Lisa plus 2.5. That's fucking stupid. That's free
3-1 with 365.
That's free money. Lisa plus 2.5 is 11-10. That is Paddy's poll, yeah. It was simply because I literally punched it into Google and they came up first. They aren't my preferred bookie of choice. My preferred bookie of choice is always whoever's paying me to do the Fallout. At any time.
So are we saying that Lisa wins it, boys, or do you think that Hoagie wins it?
No, I think it's a Lisa Ashton victory at 11-4.
I still shade Hoagie, but the upset is far more likely at that value than it was Taylor and or O'Shea to beat Henderson.
I fancy Lisa to beat him. I'm gonna go Lisa. Martin Adams against Matt Clark. Now, this one won't be over quickly.
No. And I think this is it's as close as we've got, I think, personally, to a coin toss in this opening round. I think it's probably the hardest to predict. And I'm not sure, you know. I think I'll say Wolfie, but I think it could go either way, and it will probably go all the way to the end. I think it'll be really tight. I think it'll go slow. I think it'll go long, but I think that Wolfie will do it.
What are you saying, Job?
I will take the over on match duration.
What, over 2.5 hours or under 2.5 hours?
Yeah. I just think they're both very, very comfortable at their own pace, aren't they? Like,
yeah.
As much as I should be bigging this one up, it will be a tough watch at times, especially if they're not quite clicking over that distance. Matt has been fantastic on the floor for the last 2 and a bit years. I know how much it meant to him to qualify for the Circus Tavern this year, to then get the job done so quickly in terms of qualifying for this and for Sunderland through the rankings. Means an awful lot to him. I know that since January, he's had a few health concerns. I don't know where his game is right now, if the truth be told. So it's just going to be an interesting one. I thought Wolfie played okay at the Super Series of the week without setting the world on fire. The standard concern for Martin now and moving forward is always going to be the length of match. Is going to be the format, and can he repeat it multiple times as well if he does get through this first round encounter? 67 years old.
He looked sprightly and whippy the other night.
Don't get me wrong, like if you line him up compared to everybody else in the field, you wouldn't say there's 15 years between him and some of the others. But that is taking a toll on Wolfie. And because of that, I think I'm going to give it Matt.
I think Matt edges it, but it wouldn't surprise me if Wolfie did something amazing as well. Last game's interesting because if you'd have asked me a month ago, I was concerned for Robert Thornton. But winning at the Super Series, he seems to have found something yet again. But look, we know that John Part is playing well. He's made
been playing, hasn't he? CDC.
He's made the cross-border challenge as well. He's made Team Canada for that. He cut the best promo.
An open event.
Yeah, he's made the best promo for a darts event I've ever seen in my life.
It's the greatest video in the history of darts. He's another one where the odds are all over the place as well, you know. What did John Part? You get 3-1 for John Part. And on the handicap, that's ridiculous. You can get John Part plus 3.5 is 4-6. Which would make about a plus 2.5 handicap even money somewhere. 3-1.
I love that, Josh. Thank you, RS, as well. Glad you enjoyed the Lewis interview. We'll touch on that in a minute. Don't worry. But so what are you saying? Thornton or Part?
I'm saying Part plus 2.5. That's what I'm saying. Just on World Seniors Tour record, Robert Thornton. But I would love to see this be I would love it if they could both find a big average and make a real game.
We heard that from a Geordie before.
I will love it if you beat them. Love it.
King Kev, one of the greatest. People mock that interview. It showed nothing but passion.
What are you saying, Gob?
I think they've got it wrong in the numbers, but I still think Thornton wins this. He's not had the best time of it on a senior stage of late, considering his early dominance. And even taking into consideration the form that Part is achieving right now, I think the problem for Part is the form that I've seen Thornton achieve in a regular Super Series week, made it to the final again, which he'd stopped doing for 1 or 2 appearances. And he won the double start competition a few weeks ago as well in a field of similar characters, shall we say, is the best way to phrase that.
Yeah.
That I give it Thornton.
Yeah, I think Thornton as well, but I think it will be close. Right, so again, a bit like the World Grand Prix, chat room as well. Who beats who in the final of the Bet Goodwin World Seniors match play?
Get me a bracket, will you, Phil?
I've
I've got a fixture list. I haven't got a bracket.
2 secs. The issue is the initial one that was posted was wrong, which is the one that I now have access to. And the other one looks terrible.
I know who my final is. if they're on the opposite side of the bracket, but I don't know. I know the two players I think will make the final, but if they're on the same side, I'm bollocks. I need to come up with a new plan.
Right, the one I've got has Taylor in it, but
Yeah.
2 seconds.
I'll get it in. Don't worry.
So it's uploading now.
Ooh.
There we go. Right. Oh, fuck. I can tell you one of my semi-finals. Right. So before I was reminded of the draw,
Which we did, by the way, Dan.
which we did, yeah, which I am partially responsible for. Flip it. Well, the three players that I fancy the most to win are in the same side of the bracket.
Oh, well, they're from the top half, then, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is Housen, Duff, and Hendo. And therefore, in the bottom half of the draw, and again, I bear some responsibility for this. I can't see anything other than Leonard Gates coming through the bottom half of that draw.
I was pulling his face when you named them three, and I felt like it had to be shown.
Which means it will be Leonard Gates against. I think it's a Housen Henderson semi-final.
The top half is just wrong, isn't it?
Yeah. Which dickheads drew that? It's a Housen Henderson semi-final, and John Henderson then beats Leonard Gates in the final.
Gob?
Daniel, you are wrong. But you should
Nothing
be.
new, mate. Nothing new.
I actually think the top half is a little easier to pick. And that's absolutely no disrespect to any of them, but I've been set on this player for a long time. I think Paul Hogan loses the final to a former seniors major winner, David Cameron.
I tell you what, lad, you'll get some fucking odds for that.
Have you had a bang on the head?
Nope.
You want one?
See you in 3 days.
I disagree. I think the bottom half is relatively easy. I see Gates coming through the bottom half. I don't trust Hogan on TV. End
No,
off.
That's the
I don't
problem.
trust Hogan on TV.
And it's on TV. It's on TNT, no less.
Yeah, Anthony, it's because Gob's saying silly things. Look,
Till Monday, my friend. Wait till Monday.
Paul Hogan, in open events and on the floor events, is an incredible player. On the TV, I'm not convinced. And I think Gates does a number on him.
I'm not convinced about your hairline, but you still display it every week.
It's good, isn't it? Top half, I think, is ridiculously stacked because I can make cases for Housen, Duff,
7 of them.
Mace, Henderson.
You can make a case for 7 of them, to be polite. The only one you're not going to retreat.
The top half is just ridiculous. I can make cases for them all.
And it's not just them all getting through their opening round game. There's a case for them all winning it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah, 100%.
That's it. You know, it's mad.
But I've got a little sneaky feeling this may be Neil Duff's time in a seniors event.
Ooh.
I am going to go Neil Duff to beat Leonard Gates in the final.
You just want an interview, don't you?
I can do that anytime.
He'll do a sit down with you anyway. You ain't got.
I was going to say, it's like, yeah, I just got a sneaky feeling for the Duff man. So
just bear with me 1 minute. I shall be back in 30 seconds.
No worries. But look, all eyes are on the Barbican. There are still limited tickets available. Dartshop.tv or yorkbarbican.co.uk if you want to be there. There's still limited tickets. Great event. Daniela and Charlotte return. We've got the VIP meet and greet, which I believe Duzzer is hosting. Phil is going to be part of the broadcast team now as well. So lots to look forward to in the seniors. So we've done a bit of PDC. We've done a bit of seniors. Time for a bit of WDF action, Gob. First of all, let's do let's do the darts first of all. Look, I didn't watch a lot of it, but the bits I did see on social media, I have to say, it looked very, very good in Slovakia. The arena looked good. The setup looked good. So kudos to those who set it up in Slovakia because it looked good.
More than good. I thought it was absolutely outstanding for an event from that side of the game. The darts were fantastic. We saw a very set of results. We saw some surprises, which was brilliant to see. The setup looked brilliant. The markers all did a fantastic job, who I think were mainly volunteers. They got 4 pretty successful categories with multiple events ran in 3 days, including singles, pairs, and team event for all nations. It was on Dart Connect, so it was visible. It was on a stream, which was of good quality. And they didn't just leave the cameras rolling so you could see someone picking their nose in the corner. It was shut off. This is the schedule. This is the countdown and the timer till the darts returns. Just left it open. It was top notch for a darting tournament from a WDF event that typically has far less budget than the majority of other events we see on that position. I thought it was outstanding.
I think it's
something special about people playing for their countries as well, isn't there?
It shows how it can be done. Yeah. And when people, I genuinely hope that people see it and think, oh wow, like we could do that. We could use that element, couldn't we? That would be great. I think it was brilliant, but it would just be wonderful if others could follow their lead.
Like even the feedback you've seen from the players on socials, team managers, etc., if you can translate some of it, despite it being from England, was brilliant.
Yeah,
like the feedback on food, staff, accommodation, it was a brilliant package for all of these countries to go and play in a Europe Cup, Nations Cup, Europe Cup, that produced some fantastic results.
Standard was very good as well.
Yeah, like very high. Ridiculous from the Swedes all weekend, I thought, to rock up and do the damage that they did, winning the pairs and the team event in the men's. But unfortunately, we are once again sat here talking about a WDF affiliated event that has a thick black cloud hanging over
it.
Yeah. Now,
I have to open another one for this, aren't I?
The fridge.
Yeah, it was the WDF AGM on the Tuesday. Obviously, there was lots of chat, lots of rule changes proposed, but the one that's got all the talking points, it was It was proposed by England Darts. The remit around transgender athletes playing in the women's competition, and the vote was carried. That I'm guessing it's from. We've had no official correspondence from the WDF yet of how this is going to be implemented, but my guess is it will be from 2025 that transgender athletes will now be banned from competing in the women's event.
Well, it's not just a women's event. They will only be allowed to play in the category of the gender at birth.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's not something.
It does apply both ways. It's just far less common in a sporting environment the other way around.
We obviously we broke the news first and got called liars all over the place. That
we did, didn't we? We told everyone it had happened, and everyone's called bullshit on it. And then
the official news that, by the way, the WF still haven't released a statement, but the NGB and England,
like loads of people telling us off for having shared it.
Well, just for context, the two sources, I'm not going to name them, but we had two incredible sources that were in the meeting and voted on it. I'm pretty sure. Like, I've even got. I'm not obviously going to say, but I've actually got how the vote went, how many for, how many against, and how many abstains from that meeting. So look, I think we're fairly well informed.
You might not be prepared to say the numbers, but I will, because when you consider what that equates to as a percentage of the voting membership, it's a fucking disaster.
Yeah, but that's because, let's be honest, the numbers are shit because it is an untested. It's an untested rule that may be subject to outside legal restrictions in any one of any country that the WDF oversees darts within. It's not just a case, like, yes, they've took a meeting and made a decision that that's the WDF stance. But my understanding is that there could be legal challenges brought against it in any country in which any WDF event takes place.
Yeah. There are multiple little offshoots of this. First of all, it is positively reassured from a number of sources that, including the organisation that put this proposal forward, their official communications today, within that, stated that the WDF actively encouraged members to vote against this proposal, and it still carried. So it's clear what the stance from the organisation was. They just felt they were powerless to stop it beyond that, quite why they thought that then that had to be taken to the membership if it was against other rules, etc., is beyond me. But the WDF board, shall we say, didn't agree with this decision at all. They actively encouraged members within that meeting to not make a rash decision. The issue I've got is that the people that propose this, England Darts and their supporters and people around it, are so determined that evidence exists that there is a physical advantage in the difference between genders, that they've pushed this vote through, all the while that a independent investigation is being carried out in the Netherlands right now. If you're so certain of your evidence, then why are you not prepared to let this investigation, with all its facts and findings, be presented and then vote afterwards?
Well, no, that's. I mean, the short answer is that they're not. I think it's the difficulty that everyone is going to have with this is that a lot of people, and I mean, like, you just pick someone on the street, you're going to work tomorrow and speak to someone and talk to them about darts. Their understanding of what darts is the PDC. It's what's on Sky Sports, it's what's on the telly, it's what their husband, boyfriend, whoever, watches on TV. And they are the biggest player in the game, and they're not on board with it. And then I think it's going to create challenges for anybody else when the biggest people in the game. It's like the football league, or it's like the conference or non-league football trying to put something in place when the EFL and the Premier League aren't on board with it. It's like, you know, it's a real difficult thing to do for the amateur game to put rules in place that don't then apply in the professional ranks. I'm just not convinced. Like the thing with it is, it's, you know, people are celebrating a decision, but I think that decision has first and foremost been, or it sounds like it's been very divisive within the organisation itself and its leadership. But I'm just in terms of structurally and enforcement, I don't know, and I might just be being really naive, and someone could probably explain it to me in words of one syllable. But I'm not sure how enforceable it is if any one of those countries, because the rules we understand because we live here, the sort of rules and laws and acts and other things that have to be adhered to within Great Britain, and it's just because we live here, so we understand them. I have very, very little understanding of the equivalent laws and rules and legislation in Holland and Germany and Slovakia and Belize and Australia and all the other countries. are very, very limited. Now, what happens if these rules don't conform to a particular country's way of doing things? And because I know that there is differences. There's differences in Europe between the way that some countries do and don't say that things need to be done. Some countries have a sports commission that has an overarching view on the involvement of trans women within sport, and they have, let's be honest, certain things that they do and don't consider sports. There are some countries that will say absolutely hard and fast, like, you know, if you're doing kickboxing, then then there are very firm rules in place about how trans people can be involved in that sport. They don't care as much about DARTS in some countries with those rules and those legislation. I think it's going to be difficult to enforce across the board. And I don't understand it because they haven't made an announcement. So who understands anything about it yet?
Well, also as well, I believe it is going to be legally challenged by some of the.
Well, of course it is, because and that was bound to happen, because, and it's not so much challenged. The word I would use, and it's me being pedantic, is it's going to be tested. Like the WDF are going to say, well, we're going to put this rule in, and then that rule will be tested legally, because someone will have a go at it, and then some barristers will argue about it, and at some point there'll be some precedent. But my understanding is, and I might have this wrong, I'm happy to come back next week after being called a load of names again and say I didn't know. But my understanding is those legal tests will be different in each country, because if you're an English player, you'll be able to go to the WDF and say, this is this law, act, regulation, whatever, where I'm from, that says you can't say that this about me and I'm allowed to do this. And then it'll be tested, and the judge might come back and say, absolutely not, that's perfectly fine, that law, that rule that organisation's made, that's fine. But then that will have to be retested again in another country, because they've got different rules and laws, is my understanding. And again, it could be wrong. I don't think there are any sort of agreed facts on the legal status of that decision, that ruling. I think the WDF thinks that it's allowed to make whatever rules it wants to, and it might be, may well be. We don't know yet.
Yeah, look, the other thing as well in all this that is interesting, I'm not sure how this is going to work, because Lakeside is done on a 2-year system, Gob.
At the moment, yeah.
So if
they're going back to 1 year, though, aren't they?
So yeah, I'm wondering that, like, take
consistency is key.
Victoria Monaghan and Noah are the two that stand out. If there has to be a break, because they've already started to qualify for potentially next year's tournament.
I I'm not sure when the 1 year cuts in. If that's from the start of next year,
That's what I'm asking. I don't know.
Yeah, then I don't think so. The only event you'd have to consider this year is one of the Irish events. I think takes place before the World Championships, but counts towards the following year because it's too close to the World Championships.
Right. Okay. The other bit in that statement from England Darts, which I was a little bit concerned about today. This isn't to do anything to do with the transgender.
Was it the
issue.
grammar? Sorry.
There's that as well. So I'm going to read this to you. I would like to thank all the countries who wanted to maintain their independence and integrity by refusing to associate with the DRA. This has nothing to do with the precedence given by a meeting. Rather than the DRA is an affiliated PDC organisation who relies on them for funding. England and many others have no objection to the WDF seeking advice from betting integrities at the World Masters and World Pro. It goes on, but so on. So who is effect governing their tournaments then?
Themselves, clearly, because they're breaking rules that are WDF rules in the last couple of weeks. We found that out.
They govern themselves.
With effectively by that, if they're not governed by the DRA, someone who is suspended by the DRA,
yes,
could then rock up and play.
Correct. That's my understanding.
Correct.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Not just suspended, but like banned, lifetime ban. You could have done all manner of heinous things under the DRA. I mean, granted,
Palmer Kingsley, for instance, who is officially banned for 8.5 years or whatever it was,
he is legitimately allowed
to play. Rock up at the World Championship qualifier.
Yep.
Win the qualifier and go and play at Lakeside because it's not DRA regulated.
Well, that's my understanding of the matter, and until somebody clears it up, it will continue to be my understanding of the matter. I think it is. I think that's how it works. If you're not governed by an organisation, then their decisions are moot, aren't they? They're not relevant to what you do. So I don't. If they don't recognise the DRA, then anyone the DRA bans surely is not banned, unless they then want to have their own shit list of players, and they might do. I think they do already. They might just have their own shit list of players that aren't on the list of players allowed to play.
Yeah,
I don't know whether they just. I don't know, but well, I don't know. We'll all be retired before the DRA put out the next bit of news, anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, look. Congratulations to the people running the event this weekend. It looked very, very good, but we will see what happens with that. A week in darts. Gob, you were there on Saturday night. Andreas Harrison looked very, very good. I'm not Andreas Harrison, Andy Hamilton.
He was in Slovakia, mate. Andy Hamilton.
I mean, he did look good.
I've got fine. The Swedish team on my screen. Andy Hamilton, bottom of Group A, but by Christ, did the hammer deliver when it mattered on Saturday night?
Yeah. If you, even as early as midway through the session on Tuesday, if you told me Andy Hamilton was going to win the week, I don't want to say I'd have laughed you out the room because that's a bit harsh, but I certainly wouldn't have believed you from that position. The form he showed at the back end of Tuesday, and brief spells on Wednesday, and then the way that he carried that onto Thursday was seriously, seriously good. But even still, the scoring power that was on show from the likes of Carl Sneed and Jack Tweddle, I just thought one of them might have too much for Andy at any given moment. The experience of John O'Shea, who was playing at a very, very similar level to Andy. But no, Andy kicked on when he needed it. The experience was clearly there to show. He very, I don't want to say timid or weak, but he saved the big emotions for when there was a big crowd there, when he knew the right time was to let it go. There was a really scrappy leg, I think, that he won in one of the games to go 2-1 up. And he let them know about it. And that's experience from Andy. Like, it wasn't a big checkout. it wasn't a particularly key moment, but it was a leg where his opponent, I think, had missed at least 3 darts. And at that point, you go, right, I've done you here, and I'm going to let you know about it. And he played it absolutely perfectly on Saturday night. Superb. Joins Harrison and Labanauskas in Champions Week.
Already shaping up to be a good week.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, looking good on that. We're going to play a video. We've got 2 first of all. I'm going to play one from a lad that we all know, and then we'll do the other one in a minute.
Yeah, it's always nice to be talked about, but you've got to prove it on the day as well, and you've got to have the confidence to play. So yeah, it is a bit. I've heard a lot of people talking about me getting a tour card and stuff next year, but I don't listen to that stuff. I try and keep myself focused, and hopefully I'll get there in the end.
Interesting that he's talking about already. He feels there's a bit of added pressure because everyone's talking about him ahead of Q School.
And they're talking about him because he's bloody good.
100%.
I think he's a great talent. I think he's perhaps struggled with that pressure a little bit the last couple of times we've seen him down in Portsmouth, especially after making such an impact the first 2 times he's been there. I think he's tinkered with the balance and length of points slightly in his setup over the last couple of weeks. But yeah, he is one that I absolutely. His A game is phenomenal. The way that he can pull out clutch finishing is superb. If he adds 3, 4, not even 5 to 10 points, if he adds 3, 4 points to his B game level, yeah, he'll go far.
Right, and let's play this one.
Or was there still hope that you were going to play?
Because I didn't know. I mean, like I say, I thought, well, if I want to turn on, because at the end of the day, I've earned the card in the first place. So I thought, well, why give it somebody when I've earned it myself?
Yeah.
But like I said, I mean, I still don't even know if I might even go to the World Championship qualifiers. I don't know yet. I don't know. But the only way I'm going to go back is if my mind's 100% and I'm going to go 100% at it, you know what I mean? I'm going to be one of them just to be a journeyman and not, just turn up there and get a beat and things like that. If I'm turning up there, I want...
We've heard from Jackpot. It was great to see him. He was in fine fettle at the weekend, Dan.
He certainly was. He was... he was full of the joys of spring. He had a spring in his step, didn't he? He was in a very positive, jovial mood, and we had a lovely chat with him, didn't we?
Yeah. Gob, I know you wanted to know about why he didn't, and he said, "Look, it's my card. I earned it."
Yeah,
I think the overarching, the longer piece of that interview was he talked about how for a large part of the time that he's been away, and he was quite honest. He was pretty honest with us, and he said that for a long part of it, he sort of didn't really know what his plan was, and he didn't know whether he would be back in a week or a month or in 6 months or never. And all the time that he didn't really know what was next and what was happening in the next period of time, he kept the card because it allowed that option. Didn't want to just close that option off. Like he mentioned that he still has the option of that World Championship qualifier, and he doesn't know today if he'll go, but he's probably closer to it now than he was 6 months ago, maybe. But I think that was it. It's not just that he felt like he'd earned it and therefore it was his, and why would he give it away? I think a lot of it was that coupled with the fact that he simply didn't know whether or not he was going to use it next month or the month after or the month. And I appreciate it's now been a long period of time, but there were people calling for him to give his card back at the turn of the year. There was a call for it. We were down in Minehead in March, and there was a call for it then because he wasn't at the UK Open. But I think the message from Adrian was that, well, he might have been, and he could have been, and I think he wanted and had earned the right to make those decisions on if he wanted to go to those tournaments or not.
Perhaps. I still think deep down I think if AD's lost that spark or that battle, I think the bit that really got me was the fact that he was booked for Minehead to do those kind of things. Like, even if you don't want to play Pro Tours and everything, you've earned the right to play UK Open and go and have a crack at the World Championship qualifiers. And if you're not prepared to do one of them to start with, then my expectation of you doing the other one is quite low. And like, earning the card, I think, in that position is a bit different because it's not like AD went through a Q school, battled hard, and whatever. He was a pro before they brought that system in. Sustained a very, very high level. Like, I'm not taking that away from him at all, but he's not a I don't know. He's not an Aaron Beanie who then gets injured halfway through and goes, "No, I'm going to see it out. I'm not going to give it up." Blah blah blah.
No, I get that. I just think, and I say a lot about those who pick and choose their schedule. I think you earn the right, and like he's earned the right to that card. And I think with what he's achieved in the game, for him to see a tour card out is, the least he can expect from the sport to be allowed to see out his tour card. And I think that the reason for him not being on tour is more complex than he's lost his he's lost his form. Now I think there's more to it than and therefore I think you couple that up as you look at, and I also know from that there's not just one thing, that there's a number of things, there's a number of factors that go in to Adrian not utilising that tour card, and those factors could have changed at different points throughout the last 2 years, and may have then made him more likely to use his tour card. And he couldn't really predict a lot of those, and he couldn't really see what the next month had to bring, and the next 2 months and 3 months after that. So I think he's earned the right to see out the tour card with what he's given to the game, and I do think I sort of believe him when he says he didn't know. I don't think he still does. I don't think he still knows whether or not he'll play darts tomorrow or the day after. I don't think he knows at the minute. But there are few players, probably less than 10 in the world at the minute, that I would sort of accept that from. And he's one of them because of what he's done and given to the game, the front end of his career. There are other players that I'd happily stick 2 feet in on if they'd done that. There's plenty of players where if they'd done that and sat on the tour card, I'd happily go hammer and tong at them. But I think everyone's entitled to their view, and I think that he's given enough to darts. He's earned his right to that tour card, and he can do what the fuck he wants with it.
I know time's running out, but we've got to talk about it. The African qualifier at the weekend.
Oh,
right, God, you moan at whistlers in the crowd. How would you feel at a Euro Tour if we had vuvuzelas like they did in the
fucking mint? What an atmosphere! What an evening! What presentation!
Yeah, what we see about whistling.
Danger of losing my job to the caller, who was unbelievable.
Problem with whistling, like we say, it's a sudden, shocking noise. A vuvuzela is anything but sudden. It's a fucking long run. Oh, beautiful! What a tournament! What an event! What an event!
I honestly had no idea that Kenya was so big on the sport of darts. But there is some serious talent in those ranks that just needs a little bit of nurturing. They were playing that final 1:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
It's dead exciting.
It really resulted in the greatest checkout to qualify for the World Championships you are likely ever to see from a player that we've never heard of before. I tell you now, we posted
that 154.
The Super Series earlier posted an A.D. Lewis montage from the weekend at the exhibition. They were there as well with a coming soon. ... There were 15 comments when I last checked. 9 of them were, give us Peter Washuri in the Super Series. That That is how much of an impact overnight that one event and that one man has had on this sport. And I sort of feel for Cameron Carrollison at the minute because he's qualified for the World Championships again. The big story, by the way, is that Devon Peterson did not qualify, lost out in the second round with what can only be described as a bit of a pitiful average and performance from him. I thought he was brilliant on comms and anchoring the rest of the weekend, though. So when you're producing that for other people, I think you can let it go a little bit. I know that doesn't quite go with his aspirations as a player. He still has firm belief in going and being a pro again, etc., and being that flag bearer for the continent of Africa and the sport of darts. But Peter Washuri has just stolen the hearts of the darting world. And the silly thing is, I'm not even sure he knows.
Well,
like there will have been a bit of love in the chat room last night, and Devon Peterson would have told him and whatever.
Tell him he's invited on. We'll get him on the show.
But I have absolutely no idea. Because we look, if us as darts fans know nothing about darts in Africa, then there's quite a big possibility that darts in Africa don't really know a lot about the rest of the world playing darts. They see it on TV at Christmas because Devon's playing, but how much more about the darting landscape around the world are they aware of? And if Washuri's just trapped in Kenya playing darts growing at a solid level, by the way, I just thought it was fantastic. If you were on Twitter last night, 95% of comments were about this qualifier.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
Big event. Really cool. We had some CDC as well at the weekend.
Was there?
Yeah.
That was the weekend before, Daniel.
Oh, the weekend before. Yeah.
Weekend before.
I was going to say, I thought I'd been dumb and really missed it then.
No, it was the weekend before. Me not being able to.
I will ask Devon and see what we can sort out. Also, from a week in darts, there was some interesting comments from Barry Hearn regarding the Sky deal, gents. I'm not sure how we take that. My initial thought is that Sky are trying to get it on the cheap and the PDC are having none of it.
But I think we know. Let's be honest. It doesn't take Alan Sugar to work out that Sky will try and get the deal for as cheap as they can, and Barry will try and get the most he possibly can out of it.
Yeah.
And in order to get to that point, both sides will have to measure their cocks a bit to work out who's in what seat and who does what. Now, Barry is in a far, far better position than Sky, in my opinion, because
he's in the best position they've ever been in terms of TV, right?
Yeah, darts is in the best
clamoring to see darts, whereas it's typically been, please Sky, please show our marquee events, and take the audience that comes with it.
He has got probably the most sellable product that he's ever had. It's the Matchroom have now got the most sellable product in darts than they've ever had in any iteration of the PDC in previous years. My hope, my genuine hope, is that it just stays with what I would consider as a middle-aged man, a mainstream broadcaster, because the idea of it going to doing what the boxing did and going on to something that requires me to download a fucking app, like anything that I can't just like put the channel in to my TV remote, is too much hard work. And it is for 80% of other people as well. Yes, there are plenty of people that understand that plugging something in and having an app, and they've got a PlayStation plugged in and they'll have that app on their PlayStation and they can watch it. They're like, great. I'm happy for all of those people. I've just got a telly and I just want it to be on the TV channel, please. I'm happy to pay monthly for it, but just a TV channel would be ideal, not a wacky app.
It'll be interesting to see where this.
Otherwise, you'll undo all the good work that you've done. You'll get to a point where, like, everyone's happy to. Let's be like, we put Sky Sports in the pub for the first time in 10, 12 years. It's not much of a pub, but we put Sky Sports in the pub because people have watched darts. I am not dicking about with apps and trying to then get a commercial license for an app in a pub. Fuck that. It needs to stay on something that I would consider proper mainstream television. I'll be most frustrated.
We know that money will talk. Look, I could see TNT sticking a cheeky little bid in.
That'll do. That's fine.
For it.
Eurosport, UK Gold, Dave, any of those. Happy with any of them. Any of that's fine.
Look, I'll tell you what, the 2 hours has flown by tonight, and we're already into overtime. Plenty coming your way. 3 Pro Tour streams in a row coming up. Also, plenty of interviews. Then we were at the seniors. And then we have got the World Grand Prix. So it's stacked times for darts at the moment. And we have got you covered all the way across. That we're getting close to that 40k mark. So if you haven't yet, drop us a little subscribe, everyone, and get us to that mark as quickly as you can. But it's been an absolute incredible evening from you all. You have all absolutely smashed it for us here this evening. This will be available as an audio only come the morning, but thank you very much for your continued support here at Online Darts. The chat room has been on fire this evening. But I've been Phil Bars, Jack Garwood, Dan Simpson. We are signing out, and we'll see you all very, very soon.